This is an A+ ranking monster. Its habitat is in the 7th ridge, but why is he here on the 1st ridge? Van sees that he is bleeding. Looking closely, it also has multiple arrows stuck in this body and few other injuries as well, as someone was trying to hunt him. He remembers about the barbarian tribes in this territory across the mountain. It must have came down here to get away from them. Now this is Van Chance, an injured A+ rank monster in front of him. He need to kill it no matter what happens. Van shows his true power. He have been hiding his power back at the household. He has already reached a high level of expertise, which is as a sword expert. He had already reached the level that other hounds would attain when they become adults. He takes his sword and charges towards the Cerberus and cuts his head. He thinks he can do it. An injured Cerberus is doable for him. Before Van regression, he has refined his sword skills, and also his body have been strengthened by the river Styx. Now all of his weapons Van possess are working well against the Cerberus. That's what he thought the moment he let his guard down. Cerberus uses his claws, breaks his swords, and falls on the ground bleeding. After a few moments, he wakes up lying against the tree, and sees that he was unconscious after Cerberus attacked him. He feels pain in his right arm. He sees his arm and sees the cut, thinks this must be the effect of Styx River, or otherwise his arm would have been ripped out. Cerberus charges towards him. He dodges the attack, cause he won't be able to take another hit. Now an experienced hunter must find the best way out of this situation, which is to run towards the safe area. He started running and Cerberus kept following him. Van wants to pass the iron fence and goes to the place where he set up his camp. If he gets caught before that, he will die. He jumps over the fence and Cerberus breaks through the fence. Van sees his campsite just a little further then. The Cerberus is right behind him. He was about to get caught. He jumps and the Cerberus steps on the trap. Van is happy to see his trap works, but the Cerberus one head is still alive. Van picks up a wooden spear and throws it at the Cerberus. It hit him and Van starts counting 1, 2. Cerberus comes towards Van and exactly after 7 steps he falls on the ground. Van is relieved. Van says the rumors were true. The wooden spear he threw wasn't a regular wooden spear. It is laced with the bloody mamba's venomous fangs. It won't let you walk more than 7 steps once bitten by them. Van can feel the energy of Cerberus flowing into his body. All 3 heads are dead now. Van is worried how he is going to take it back. The cause of death will be obvious, and the guardian knight saw him carve the wooden spear, so he will be his witness. But first Van wants to do something, as these Cerberus are the gatekeepers that protect their territories, so there must have been a dungeon nearby where you can find treasure. Now the gatekeeper is gone, the dungeon must be empty. Van puts the remains and blood of Cerberus on his clothes, which will keep the small monsters away from him. He backtracks the footprints and droll of Cerberus and found the dungeon. Van remembers before his regression coming here, as it will be discovered in another 10 years, but it's going to be empty. But right now, Van can sense mana under the rotten surface. He gets excited thinking, what kind of treasure will he found under there, and goes inside the dungeon. And sees a light coming from the entrance of the dungeon. He goes inside and sees a big ruby shining crystal, which is imbued with mana. Van goes close to it and sees a skeleton, which means someone was here before him. Van sees his injuries and dry blood, which means he has been dead for quite a while. He picks up a letter and sees the handwriting and thinks he must be from Baskerville. In the letter he says he is writing this for the future generations do not make the same mistake like he did. This stone chamber has been talked about as legend in the family, so him and his brother Abel coincidentally came across this place and raided the dungeon and passed through countless trails. They killed many monsters and finally arrives at the chamber to find the final assignment of this place. That assignment took a long time of 3 years, which says when entering it's 1, but once inside it's 2, when leaving it's 1. Him and his brother contemplated over this text forever and finally comes to the conclusion him and his twin brother was 1 in their mother's womb but were separated into 2 when given birth. In other words, to get the treasure they need to become 1 again, which means only one of them can leave with the treasure. After a fierce battle he ended up killing his brother, but still there was no change. In their theory, they definitely went from 2 to 1, so why they couldn't get the treasure. Filled with guilt of killing his own brother, he decided to leave the place and wanted to tell anyone who come here to leave this place immediately. Van says he came all the way here facing countless challenges and left with nothing, but he doesn't have a twin. Van thinks the assignment is the same for both him and for the cane, which means he might have misinterpreted the text. Van starts thinking as there is no dungeon that cannot be defeated. He looks at the skeleton and starts laughing, which he has figured out the text. Van says these 2 brothers were just unlucky because they were 2 and Coulson solved the problem because they were hindered by a fixed idea. as the answer to this riddle lies inside the dungeon, as Van is the only one entering through the dark passageway, but as soon the ruby light casts a shadow on him, he becomes two, and he breaks the ruby crystal as the answer to the riddle is shadow. After breaking the crystal, a light appears in front of him and creates a sword. Van gets excited seeing this and thinks this is the relic of the Devil's Den, and the text says only those with the blood of Baskerville's family will be able to take Beelzebub. Van remembers something seen in an illustration of picture book in his childhood, where the gluttonous fly named Beelzebub, an unprecedented great monster that invaded the continent in the old legends, the Devil's holy constellation, also known as the Seven Calamities. In order to stop these seven calamities, the seven families stepped up to take on the Devil's holy constellation each. The Devil's constellation that the first Baskerville patriarch fought was the gluttony Beelzebub, and the remains of the Beelzebub was stored in the lands of Baskerville, and Beelzebub's demonic energy was said to have lured monster. It was an old legend that no one believes now. However, that legend was true, and this blade was taken later by the demon clans, which resulted in countless of deaths among humans on the battlefield in his previous life. But it won't happen in this life as it's his now. He tries to take out the sword, but it goes into his hand and comes out from the back of his hand as a blade. Van gets really excited and wonders how much stronger will he become in this life, as now he has the Beelzebub, a blade made from the corpse of a Devil's holy constellation. Van thinks he should head back now as there is nothing else for him to obtain. Suddenly he starts feeling dizzy from hungriness and goes on his knees. The sword wants to eat. He comes out of the dungeon and starts feeling voracious hunger in his stomach. The sword goes to the left side and says it smells something delicious. Van sees the hellhound he killed earlier. The sword starts absorbing the blood of the hellhound. Van insides are reverting back to the normal. Van thinks it must be starving for a long time. He has no idea how much he has to feed him in order to console his eating disorder. After drinking it, a files pop-up appears with one slot having hellhound hemorrhage, and second, third are empty. Van thinks this must be Beelzebub's inherent ability. Beelzebub, the gluttonous fly, has the ability to turn the opponent's power into his own. Since the absorption amount is nearly infinite, countless people have said to lost their abilities and turned obsolete. Van thinks due to high being hazardous, he can only steal up to 3 abilities now. The first one is Hellhound Hemorrhage, a skill that constantly pumps out the blood of the opponent even through the smallest of wounds. Van is happy as now he can steal abilities, then suddenly Beelzebub goes crazy, wants to devour the Cerberus too. But Van tells him no as if it's too damaged, how he would explain everything during the autopsy. Van slaps it, then sees 2 more skills. First is the Burn Injury Cerberus A+, and the second is the Hemorrhage Hellhound B+, and the third is High Speed Regeneration from the Rat F rank. Van thinks it must have consumed the rat underneath the Cerberus. It's a great achievement for Van to have acquired the burn injury kill from the Cerberus, since thermalgia is one of the worst pains a human could experience, which so be worse than the hellhound hemorrhage. Now he has done preparing the monsters to submit for the practical exams. He wants to wait until the exam is over, after the exam is completed, and the hounds who completed by returning to Baskerville. The students will receive a shield, sword as their rewards, which will be produced from the parts of the monster they hunted. Of course, the monsters Van hunted. The instructors were shocked to see them, and the report goes straight to Hugo. He asks his butler who caught them, Master Van from the 8-year-old class, who accidentally crossed over the restricted area during the exam and hunted the Cerberus of the A+ ranking rating. As the Cerberus is a high-ranking monster, even the knights tend to avoid them. Butler tells Hugo that it was wounded by the barbarian tribe, and also Van applied poison on his wooden spear. Hugo asks him what kind of poison is lethal enough to kill the Cerberus, and how was Van able to get it. Butler says there is nothing about the poison that's reported in the hunting journal, and when he asked Van, he said he is tired and goes to his dorm. Hugo smiling and thinks as that little brat is already so sly. According to him, information is power and power is your worth. Butler tells Hugo he is quite shocked to see that a master named Van and not La or La would be so talented. Hugo tells him he is not like other patriarchs. When he raises a hound, he doesn't discriminate them based on their blood. It doesn't matter where they comes from, as they have talent, he welcomes them, and which means that there can be mutts coming from royal bloodlines too. Butler thinks is he concerned about his second son, who is preparing for the isolation training. Hugo tells him to bring Van. He comes in the room, and Hugo tells him he heard that you hunted a Cerberus in your practical exams, how he was able to hunt that monster. Van tells him he put chocolate on his wooden spear, As for Candid Monster's chocolate is a lethal poison and ask him that's why he asked for it, he tells them yes. Hugo asked him why he didn't respond properly to the butler when he questioned him about it. Why is that? Van says that because he is not his master, since he belonged to the clan, so his master would be the one who is the clan master. Hugo tells him he has learned very well. As a reward, the corpse of the monster he wanted will belong to him, and additionally, if he has any wish, Hugo will grant it as he has scored the highest score in the exam. Van says he would like to gain access to the 10,000 epistle library. They are surprised hearing this. This library is one of the largest library in the empire, which is located deep within the heart of the Baskerville clan. Hugo tells him that only him and the second in command along with their direct descendants are allowed to it. Van tells him if it's not permitted, he will give up and will have to sneak in the library. Hugo tells him he can enter the library, and also he should read the Baskerville 6th technique, which is located within the 6th restricted zone deep inside the library. Van is surprised to hear this, as there has never been a case where Hugo would ever let an illegitimate child with the Van middle name was allowed to go past the 4th technique. Van pulls himself together as Hugo's current level is the Baskerville 7th technique, and before his regression he was able to bear 9 of the fangs. Now Van haven't forgotten about the life of discrimination as an illegitimate child and will surpass Hugo in this lifetime. Because Van wants to obtain the greatest essence of Baskerville, which is the textbook of swordsmanship containing 3 teachings of the first patriarch, who was able to defeat the 7 great disasters, which he will get that from none other than Hugo le Baskerville. Hugo tells Van he is looking forward to see him. Van says thank you and will surpass his expectations. Van goes to the library, which is guarded by 2 guards. Finally, Van can use the books on swordsmanship that he wanted to desperately learn in his past life, cause no matter how much mana does an illegitimate child of Baskerville had, they can't learn any swordsmanship skill that is superior to the 4th technique. In order to ensure that the children who become hounds doesn't bare their teeth towards their master, Van finally comes across the book, which is chained up. Van thinks Hugo would have never given him this offer before his regression, as Hugo must be thinking, how could an 8-year-old memorize this in a day? He opened the lock, but before his regression he learnt the theory behind the 1st till 4th technique until he got sick of it, and was able to deduce and speculate the theory of the 5th technique. As he was reading the book, he remembers after drawing the 4th tooth he needed to stop the flow of mana, but couldn't. That's why he wasn't able to make the 5th tooth. As Baskerville sword's technique, depending on the stage of the sword, it's 1 tooth for the 1st technique, 2 teeth for the 2nd, and so on, and when they draw teeth, a special trait, a red sword energy, appears. But Van is not interested in the 6th technique, since the real reason is different why he came to this library, a stage that's higher than these techniques. He comes to the guard and tells them he is finished here. They are shocked to hear this, as Van been here for a few minutes. They tell Van to stay here longer and look around. Van tells them before he wants to read some other books, so don't worry about him and do what they need to do. He goes to find the book, which in his opinion is a hidden treasure. He found the book named Lurking Ambush. He gets excited when he found the book. This is the book on the basics of the 1st technique that the Baskerville family don't read. Due to ripped pages, it's a useless book, but Van knows the true value of this book. Before his regression in the Hound squad he was in, they had found a strange relic in the dungeon that was on the border of the Nora Mountain, which was a page from a swordsmanship textbook, but it was a single ripped page, a page with Baskerville's handwriting written on the page. Hugo found this remarkable and goes through the whole library to find the book that matches the page. That was the swordsmanship book, A Lurking Ambush. In this book, the Baskerville ancestors wrote a Baskerville 10th technique in it. Hugo goes crazy about the technique and released the hounds and found the remaining 6 pages that had the technique written on them. Hugo finds out that the remaining pages were hidden in the Great Sudden families. He declared war on other families and sent hounds to those who refused him. And after the sacrifices of so many hounds, all the missing pages were given to Hugo, and the reward for doing all of that was nothing. Van gets mad, says that it was a stupid life, due to which Hugo broke the 7th technique and achieved the 10th technique, and under was a pile of wasted corpses of hound and their blood. Van will not let that happen in this life, as the hound who reclaimed all those pages were Van, and he remembers all the contents that were written on those pages, and the reason he couldn't go beyond the 4th technique was because he didn't have access to the original book, and he starts reading the book as he thinks that it really does seem like a useless book. But when you use the missing pages and fill the blanks, that false, misleading information becomes into an amazing masterpiece of a book. Van wants to reclaim the power he had before his regression, and kept reading the book till the next day. closes the book as now he has memorized the book's contents from start to end. He doesn't feel the presence of the guards. He can't draw 10 teeth with a young body. But for now he might be able to achieve the 5th technique, which he can't in his previous life. He imagines a body in front of him and uses the 1st technique, then the 2nd, then 3rd, and then the 4th. Remembers that his previous life was pathetic. After his hard work, he was able to maintain the highest level of graduator aura, but he wasn't able to learn a suitable sword technique, so the people of the direct bloodline were hostile towards him, and he couldn't go past the 5th stage because he was born as an illegitimate child. But in this life, he will never live like that, and finally was able to use the 5th technique. Van thinks he is still weak, but was able to draw the 5th tooth. Van gets so excited and was really happy as he was able to use the 5th technique. Now Vane Mana has reached a new max. This liquid aura is the sign of a graduator, which means he has gone from high-class sword expert to low-class graduator. In his previous life, it took him 30 years to achieve this, but couldn't believe he had managed to reach that level at only 8 years old. Graduators are completely different level from sword experts. The solid aura turns into liquid aura, and the density also increases. Allows it to be used more freely. Now his swordsmanship is also much better than before he regressed. Now he won't stop at the 5th technique, but a sword technique can reach up to 10 technique with endless possibilities. The piercing fang that he learned previously, although it was true that he could get stronger in a short period of time, but it has its limitations. But on the other hand, the lurking ambush, it's a perfect sword technique that can smoothly transition between offense and defensive with no growth limitations. If Vane put his mind to it, he might be able to challenge a mid-class graduator. The only problem Van has now is how much his power he can show it to Hugo. As he can't show too much or too less of his strength, he needs to give Hugo something to look forward so he have enough time to take everything he need. Van puts a magnifying glass in front of the book and burns the book, thinking Hugo will have a hard time reaching the 10th technique, which excludes Van, of course. Guards come in and ask Van what is he doing. He apologized to them as he accidentally left the magnifying glass around it and burned the book. Guards tell him it's nothing as it's the section of the useless books. Van tells them, aren't you guys are busy with the Morg clan regarding the ruby mines, and this small problem isn't worth their time. Guards tell him if he keeps it a secret, they will follow his lead. He says of course he will keep this secret between them and leaves the library. He comes to Hugo and he asks him what did he learn there. He tells them something warm, sharp, and yet soft, felt something like that. They both are surprised to hear this. Aura is the sign that you have officially entered the world of the swords. Even geniuses have to train without rest until they are 15 in order to reach the level of low-class sword expert. Hugo gets excited and asks Van to show his father what that is. Van said of course. The scene shifts to the arena where all the students gather and Van has a sword in this hand. Butler asks Hugo how is he planning to test out skills of young Master Van. He says he is planning to release a monster for him to deal with. All the gates closes and a monster comes in with chains and orc with risk rating of C. Students are surprised to see an orc and thinks it's an overkill to send an orc to deal with an 8-year-old. Hugo gives him the signal to release the monster. As he got released, he shouts loudly and charges towards Van. He easily cuts his one arm and one leg and falls to the ground. Orc must be feeling pain for the first time as his regeneration won't activate either. It's because a C-class monster won't be able to stop the hemorrhage caused by a B-class hellhound. Everyone is surprised to see this, but Hugo is calmly watching him. Van thinks he is waiting to see what he learned inside the library. Van says he will show him what he wants. Hugo and his butler are both surprised to see this, as takes out an aura blade and dashes towards the monster. Hugo is totally stunned seeing this. His butler tells Hugo that is certainly the aura of a low-class sword expert and congratulate him. They have just witnessed the birth of a genius. Hugo tells him is that what he thinks. Butler says among all the families, he don't think there will ever be a genius like this. Hugo stops him and tells him that something is wrong with the orc as they're known for their regeneration. As you can see, his bleeding isn't stopping, and tells him that he only won because the orc was much weaker. Van shouts at Hugo and says, "Father, is there anything stronger than the orc?" All the students are surprised to see this. However, Van thinks it's better he show off his power to a certain degree. If he gets lucky, his progress might get acknowledged, and he will be separated from Hugo. He could get dispatched to a remote area or get admitted to an academy. Hugo gets excited as an orc is not enough to satisfy his son. He tells the butler to bring the creature they captured during the barbarian raid for experiments. He says they have one left now. It must be starving now that it's been starving for a while. Students are surprised seeing this. Van is wowing as this is a troll which is 10 times bigger than him. Van asks Hugo can he start, he says yes, and they remove the chains, and they both charges towards each other. Troll punches Van, but he dodges the attack, comes behind, but doesn't attack. The students get frustrated as this was his chance, but Hugo says this was a good choice. These trolls have excellent regenerative power, so only the fatal attack are worth it. Which is why a plan is needed to hunt a troll. Van dodges all his attacks and Troll seems to get tired. If Van could use his full power, he could easily have defeated the monster, but he has to act. Van needs to make his win by using Troll's power against him and charges towards the troll and cuts it. Everyone thinks he will regenerate unless it's a fatal wound. Everyone thinks killing a troll with Baskerville first technique is too hard, and it is quite impressive he is able to accomplish despite being only 8 years old. Certainly, the Baskerville first technique is not enough to slice through his thick skin, but they would die from Beelzebub hemorrhage skill after a while, which would be meaningless. Hugo tells Van this is enough anymore, can be dangerous, so stop. Van tells Hugo he is almost done, and tells him he is near an epiphany, and he will give up if he can't kill it with his next attack. Hugo is surprised to see this and lets him fight. Now how much Van should oppose his power, which he has already decided. He wants to show a scenario where he has leveled up from an epiphany during the fight. Van gets ready to attack the troll, and thinking how will Hugo react after seeing this, he charges forward and cuts the troll's neck down. Butler and all the students are shocked seeing this. In iron-blooded sword clan Baskerville, a person's life is formulaically set. About at the age of 15, a hound can imbue the sword with mana. Normally, hounds attain the Baskerville first technique at that stage. But at this moment, first time in all of the Baskerville clan's history, an 8-year-old has attained the second technique, which is normally achieved at 18 years of age. Van gets happy smiling and says he finally did it. Hugo couldn't believe what he just saw. After that scene goes to a weeks later, where students are eating in the hall, and Van can't get used to the porridge they serve. After that incident, everyone has been distancing themselves from him. He gets happy seeing Hugo taken aback at the arena, for now Van has revealed that he can use second sword technique. But in reality, he is a low-rank graduator and can weakly perform the fifth technique of the Baskerville, and also with the skill he got from the troll he should be stronger than the average graduator. In slot 3 he has super speed regeneration troll skill. Van has been eating a lot more ever since he got Beelzebub. The three brother comes to him, Van sees them and tells them was the last time not enough. They just wanted to tell Van that he looked cool when he defeated the troll and the Cerberus. Van doesn't like that and almost spits his food. He doesn't understand what kind of trick they are pulling and thinks he should beat them. Then Butler comes in. Van is surprised to see him, and he tells Van to hurry up to the Patriarch's room. The scene moved to a royal palace where Hugo is meeting with the head of Morg clan named Adolf Morg. Adolf tells Hugo he hopes the annual event goes smoothly. Hugo tells him it always goes smoothly. Adolf says, but last time there were 2 seriously injured students from each family. Hugo say it was just a scratch as the Morg's children are quite the dramatic ones. Adolf gets irritated and says of course because they are noble and dignified, and they both started emitting their auras as they ready to fight. They were not always on bad terms. The Emperor once said that magic and swords are a complementary pair, due to which the Baskerville and Morgs began joint training sessions. Only the children between the age of 8 and 15 can participate, and it was carried out as a good atmosphere as an annual event. However, a problem occurred. There was a ruby mine in between Morg and Baskerville territory, which ended up being split over this conflict. As a result, the 2 patriarchs came to be on bad terms, but they have continued the joint training on the Emperor's command, due to which Patriarch's younger brother Adolf came in this stead. Adolf asks Hugo about the news that a supernova has arrived in his family. Hugo smilingly says it's not a big deal. Adolf is surprised to see Hugo reacting to a compliment about his child. Adolf tells Hugo they also have a genius among them named Camus and tells her to come in. She comes and Old tells Hugo she is his sister Respini's daughter. Adolf tells her to greet the Patriarch. She gets angry and asks Hugo, you are the one who stole our ruby mine, and tells him to give it back. Hugo gets mad as she called him thief. Adolf is flustered about Camus, and she says he was the saying that annoying Chinbird stole the ruby mine. Adolf tells Hugo this is just a misunderstanding. Hugo says no worries, she is just a child as there's no need to explain the Morg's problem children education to him. Camus shouts to Hugo saying give her rubies back as because she can't do research as she doesn't have enough. Adolf doesn't get why is she saying that. Now Hugo is really mad and tells the girl to stop, enough is enough. Adolf gets scared and tells Hugo to calm down, as what does he plan on doing to a child? Then Van comes into the room. Adolf thinks this child must be that supernova of the Baskerville. Camus goes straight to Van. He recognized her as she is the famous Morg clan iron-blooded princess. Camus Morg was called the genius of geniuses, even in the Morg clan. In her peak she killed all the monsters and barbarians in the Nora mountain by herself and burned them to death on spears, creating the famous border of blood and ashes. Plus, her beauty was captivating as she was able to manipulate Ed, the imperial family, therefore was called the fur goddess of authority. But that's in the future. Right now she is just a child. She asks him why the ruby mine is his, not hers. Van tells her she came a long way just to throw a tantrum. She gets mad and tells Van, "Let me show you a hide. The ruby mine belonged to the Morgs, so that a stupid person like you can even understand." Van says that sounds fun. She creates an ice sculpture of their palace. Van is disappointed as he thought they were going to fight. She explains to him that the mine is situated on the border between Morg and Baskerville, which is called the Joint Security Area. The problem is that the entrance of the mine is on Morg territory, but the mines runs underneath the Baskerville family territory. The Baskerville family can't take the mine for themselves, as the ruby minerals vein belongs to the Morg clan. But Baskerville are asserting that it's trespassing and interrupting the mine, and also rejecting our offer to pay the rent for the territory. Adolf thinks this is a great point. She tells Van that rubies are used for magic ingredients, so the Baskerville family doesn't need the mine. Van tells her it must be tragedy for them, as there isn't an idiot in the Baskerville who would open up the land just to earn a few pennies from you guys. She tells Van that he just said that the Baskerville don't need the rubies. Van tells her that's right, they are only interested in their land. She tells Van that she will make him understand who has the possession over the ruby mineral mine. The left side is the Baskerville and the right side is Morg's. She puts her arm on the left and asks him whose arm is this. Van tells her she is asking whose arm it is that's in his land. He grabs her hand and tells her it's his, of course. She started blushing and tells him how can she be his stupid. Van tells her he did not say that you are mine, and takes out a dagger. Everyone is shocked to see this. He is saying that her arm is his, with a sinister look on his face. Hugo is surprised to see this happening. Van was about to cut her hand. She shouts, "Help, uncle!" Adolf gets mad and tells Van to get away from his niece. Surprised by this, Van let go of her hand. She starts crying as he was about to cut his hand. Adolf asks Hugo what is going on here. Hugo tells Van that he has gone far with that joke. Van says sorry while he plays with the toy sword. Van immediately apologizes as he had no intention to make her cry. As in the Baskerville family, kids often play with toys like these from a young age. Adolf is still mad at Van for playing prank. Hugo tells him not to get overly involved in child play as he has some ideas regarding the ruby mines, which he is sure Morg would love to hear about it. Camus tells Van to better watch his back as she will take her revenge. Van just kept smiling at her. The friendly duels between the Baskerville's family and Morg's family begun. In this occasion where children ages between 8 to 15 gather and battle it out, while 8 years old challenge each other in theory or mana sensitivity. On the other hand, children around the age 15 get most attention with their live battles. However, this year everyone's attention is somewhere. The duel between Camus from the Morg clan and Van from the Baskerville clan. As requested by the Morgs, they will use practical rules and showcase a duel between the two geniuses. The bell rings and Camus casts a spell. Everyone is surprised to see this, as this is her infamous quadra casting. Adolf gets happy seeing Camus performing a spell which is even difficult for a 15-year-old. As she fires her spell, Van easily dodges her attacks, and tells her it would have been better if she would have focused on a single spell. She gets mad, tells him she doesn't care about that, and puts up a sand wall in front of her, but Van easily broke through the wall. Camus didn't expect him to break through the wall, and she closes her eyes. As she opens them, Van flicks her on her head. Adolf didn't like that at all, and Hugo is loving this. She tells Van she will not let him get away with this. She puts 2 sand walls, thinking he can't get through these layers. Van thinks what's the point, he can go around them, but he plays along and punches through them, and tells her whose arm just crossed the wall, and the answer is the stronger one as he flicks her head. She has a ball on her face and shoots a fire at him. Van thought she would give up if he hurt her like that, but thinks dealing with children is harder than he thought. Van could defeat her in 0.1 second, but that will cause an issue. He thinks he should let the others deal with this problem. He sees a mage who keeps shooting fire magic, and the swordsman why keeps slicing magic would be helpful for him. The mage uses his advanced fire spell and fires it. Van waits for his chance, and as he was moving away from her, he tells Camus to have a defensive spell ready as the fireball is coming right at her. She doesn't have much time to think and gets caught in it. Everyone is worried as they took a direct hit. But Camus is sitting covering herself as her clothes were burned in the fire, and she is embarrassed if the smoke around her disappears, and the people will see her. She will be a laughingstock for everyone. Van comes to the rescue to give her his jacket. She gets mad at him and asks him why is he helping the enemy. He tells her should he take his jacket back. She asks him he doesn't care about his body being exposed to everyone. Van tells her he doesn't care about that. She thinks why is he caring about her. She tells him his arm is bleeding. Van thinks it must be from the swordsman. He might have some mana left in him. After the smoke clears, Adolphe is relieved to see that she is fine. Everyone sees that Camus is on the ground, and they can't determine who won, but they amazed seeing the body of Van, and it must be thanks to the river Styx. Adolphe takes Camus with him. The scene shifts to the hall where Hugo and Van are walking. Hugo asked Van about the battle with the lady of the Morgue clan. He says it was interesting as now he understands the purpose of this event. Hugo tells him the battle against Mage is different than the battle between the swordsmen. He asks Van why he didn't go for a clear blow. Van tells him he was confused about how to deal with a lady. Hugo tells him letting your guard down in battle will lead to injury. Take that injury as a lesson. Van is stunned to see Hugo caring about him, as during his youth he doesn't remember much about him. But he was always so cold, so strict, and so brutal. Rumors for his personality got so bad was because he lost his first wife and his eldest daughter. Well, that's not his problem. We comes to them. Hugo asked Van about what they should do with the ruby mines. He tells him that they should give it away. Hugo asked what's his reasoning for this, as the main task for the Baskerville Clan is to grow their territories. As the Red All Mountain where ruby mine is located is the downstream from the Nora Mountain, the monsters and the barbarians there will become a problem for them. So they should let the Morgue clan to deal with them to minimize the losses during the expansion into that region. Hugo tells Van this is correct. Once the Morgue clan receives the control over the ruby mines, they will assign a great number of people there, and all they need to push the barbarians and the monsters into that region, and they will be able to care of all the problems at once. And if that happens, Morgue clan will think twice before entering your territory. Hugo pats Van's head as his idea was about 90% correct. As they were walking, Adolphe comes in front of them and tells him he wants to talk to him before he returns. Camus is blushing behind him. They goes into the room and Hugo asks him what's the last thing he wants to talk about. Adolphe tells him they have been thinking about peacefully resolve the issue regarding the ruby mines. Fees for its usage is one of the suggestions. Adolphe asks him how about an engagement between the Morgue and the Baskerville children. Hugo asks him which child he have in his mind. Adolphe tells him how about his eldest son of Baskervilles and the eldest daughter of the Morgues, which is his niece. She is an incredible child, as has looks and knowledge, she lacks nothing. Hugo tells him his eldest son is 25 this year. Are you aware about the age gap? It's a 17-year difference. Adolphe tells him it's not a problem. Camus tells everyone that she will not marry anyone weaker than her mom. Adolphe tells her for someone like Strong, she would have lived her entire life alone. Camus says it doesn't, this is her condition. Hugo tells her this is not a buffet of her choosing. Camus tells Hugo she knows, and she has no intention of playing around either. She looks at Van. Adolphe tells her no, never, as he has the Van surname, which is not one of the Le descent. Hugo finds this oddly annoying. Hugo asked Van what are his thoughts about his engagement with her, as Camus watching him. Van says he will do it, if this is Hugo's order. Adolphe didn't like that at all.